Now, there are changes that I have brought about in billing version 3, which is right now available. There are new ways to pay. There is offline payment, off-device payment that is supported right now. There are subscription promotion capabilities that are added.
I'm alone, I'm a broken home. I gave you all the bricks that I already know. I'm letting go, I'm breaking these.
Live streaming is on.
Yeah, Revuda, go ahead.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Android Stream Day. Now we have with us Amrit Sanjeev, and I don't think I need to introduce him. So yeah, he's gonna be talking about improving subscriptions. So if you are an Android app developer and if you have ever worked with subscriptions in your app, then you might know that it's a very tricky thing, right? So Amrit Sanjeev will help us today to understand it and improve it in our app. So yeah, over to you, Amrit.
Thanks, Raghu. Hi, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well and you're keeping yourself safe. In today's session, I want to kind of cover some of the things that we are doing with subscriptions that will enable you to kind of go ahead and build a product that can actually make a lot more money than it is doing otherwise. So this is not, like I said, this is going to be an quick run through the features that is already available in play. But during my analysis, I've seen that many developers are not sometimes aware of this or are not using some of these features well. So I'll start off assuming that people don't know much about this, and we'll go through each feature one by one and try and help you understand some of the use cases in which these could be used, and you can actually kind of improve subscriptions in your app. So I work at Google as a staff developer advocate. I work in a team called Partner DevRel, and we work with the large partners in order to help improve their implementation on the Google platform. So that's what I do in my day job. I've been active in the community for quite some time, and that's how some people who know me. And I've been recently hearing this, that people don't introduce me anymore. They say they know. I'm not sure if everybody knows me, but still, yeah, this is my day job. Apart from this, a lot of people know me for my work in the community, in the Android community. I was one of the guys who initiated the Bela Droid community in Bangalore. So a lot of people have met. A lot of us meet together on a regular basis before this COVID happened on a regular basis in order to discuss things about Android, have sessions and network. Let me quickly run through the agenda. I want to talk to the basics of play billing so that everybody's on the same page. A little bit about subscriptions versus one-time payment, and then how do you improve the subscription revenue? This is not going to be a business talk, but this is a technical one. But I'm going to touch more from a product perspective. So from a play billing perspective, if you look at it, you have this. There are three types of products. One is the one-time product, which most people are usually using right now, where people would buy something for a certain amount of price. They would either can make it a consumable product or it can be a non-consumable product. By what I mean by consumable product is something that will exhaust over a period of time based on usage. Say something like coins in games or virtual currency, things like that, where the user can buy that product, get an X amount of this product, and then as they use it, it gets consumed off. And when they turn out, when that becomes zero, there's no longer product available for you to use. A non-consumable product is like a one-time payment that you make for a premium version of an app. So you pay a couple of dollars or a couple of ₹100 and then get a lifetime license for it, where it's non-consumable. So no matter how much you use, this particular product is not getting removed from your usage. Now there is also rewarded products, which is basically when you watch an ad and get some data, get some credits, which could be consumable or non-consumable. It's considered to be an in-app product. Games often use this quite often to kind of enable re-engage the user. So they say, okay, watch an ad and then you get X amount of coins, or watch an ad and I get you this premium feature. Basically that drives ad revenue. and user also benefits by getting a certain amount of virtual currency. It's usually coupled with consumable sort of flow, where the user gets it for a certain amount of time, or the user gets it for a certain amount of usage. Now, subscription is there when it's a recurring flow that renews automatically until it is cancelled by the system or cancelled by the user. Now, there are changes that I have brought about in billing version 3, which is right now available. There are new ways to pay. There is offline payment, off-device payment that is supported right now. There is subscription promotion capabilities that are added. There is also purchase attribution in games, which is very important. And there is also improvement in reliability and security part of things. The important timelines that you got to think about is that at August 2nd next year, all new apps are supposed to actually migrate to billing library version 3. And from November onwards, all updates to your existing app should also use this version. Yes, it feels like you have a lot of time, but this is also an area of real importance to an app. So there's a ton of testing that you will have to do in order to be confident in rolling this out. So the earlier you do it, the better, in my opinion. Now, when you do a valid purchase, this is the confusion that I see a lot of developers have. Basically, from the perspective that how do you actually secure your payment? Now, you actually get a purchase token. When somebody makes a payment, right, your app actually gets a purchase token from the play billing library. You really need to send it to your backend and maintain a copy of it at your backend. That way, you can check when the next time a payment token comes, you can check whether that payment token already exists in your backend. If it exists, that means that this is a fraudulent transaction where somebody is sharing a payment token that is already used, and multiple users are trying to share something. You can actually do this verification in the backend, your backend. You can also verify with the Google endpoint if the purchase is legitimate. You can use that purchase token, call the Google Play endpoint, and then check whether that purchase has really happened or not. If the purchase is legitimate, then you got to give the entitlement to the user, basically unlock features for the user. In case of a subscription, you also have one more step that you need to check, which is the linked purchase token. If the linked purchase token is set, which means that this is like there was a particular the particular entitlement the user already had, and then they canceled it, and then they're resubscribing or re-enabling it, then you want to remove the linked token, so that the previous token, so that there is no fraud that can happen based on that older token there in your system. Again, don't use order IDs to check for duplicate purchase. Order IDs are not unique always. Like in case of promotion codes, for example, order IDs are not even generated. So don't use order ID as a mechanism for checking your duplicates. This is another common mistake that we see developers doing. Now, voided purchases. So when a purchase is cancelled, or it is charged back, or even a developer is actually giving a refund to the user, that's considered to be a void purchase, right? In that case, you need to take some actions around it. Just don't leave it like that. You can always claw back the unused items, which means if a purchase was cancelled by the user, they don't need to continue having access to the things that they purchase. So that is where you claw back the unused items. There is also this multiple strike policy that you can implement. These are recommendations basically, where if the user is actually doing this multiple times, you might want to temporarily disable access to the app, or temporarily disable purchases to it. And that way, if you see somebody doing this quite often to game the system, then you can actually take more drastic steps, like temporarily disabling purchases on the device, on that app, in your app for that particular user, or disallowing the user entirely to access the app itself. These are drastic steps, but quite needed when things go out of hand and people misuse the system a lot. There is an API called as void purchases API, which you can use to initiate corrective action. Ensure that you're always within the API quota, because there is a quota for this. You can't keep calling it as so too many times. So when you want to decide the frequency in which you're going to do this sort of actions, you want to ensure that you take the API quota into consideration. The next thing is, let's talk about subscription. So one-time payment is not something that we're going to deal with a lot in this talk. I've talked to you about what are the differences between both so that you have a clear understanding. Now let's talk about subscriptions now. Subscriptions basically is becoming very popular among developers because there is a strong trend of recurring revenue that is coming. And generally, globally, subscription-based apps are actually getting more revenue for the users, revenue for the developers. And that trend has actually picked up a lot. If you see, more and more people are getting used to the digital environment and using digital cash and paying for services online. And we see that more and more people are using subscription services, and from a place where we're seeing more and more people actually getting success on play with the subscription service model rather than the single time payment model. But do keep in mind the regional preferences, and there are some strong regional preferences for certain places. I wouldn't say that it works for everywhere the same way. Do keep in mind what are the modes of payment that is supported, the prevalence of cash transaction within the region. And so there are sometimes very regional apps. There are apps that are only released to a particular demography of the audience. You really need to keep some of these things in mind before deciding whether subscription or in-app one-time purchase is a better option to do. Some people, depending on some of these factors, you might want to change the product decision and decide between the two options that is available. But having said that, subscriptions really give you a lot more options to work around and work with, and we'll talk about that in the subsequent slides here. Again, another indicator is the digitization level in the market. If more people are used to consuming digital products and paying for subscriptions, then it's much easier for your app to actually survive on a subscription model. In India, there is this general trend that people talk about a lot, where subscriptions is not working very well, sort of a thing. I think it is it is not 100% accurate where subscriptions won't work in India. No, there are apps which have got a lot of success with subscriptions in our region also. So don't make this misconception don't go with this general idea and not even try subscription model for apps if you're targeting a new audience and things like that. Just take these factors that I talked about and more data after your analysis into consideration before taking that decision. Now, why should you control the churn? If you look at this chart, right, this is a very interesting chart that I found on the internet the other day, where if you have a small churn in customers and even a single digit churn in your customer base can have real lasting impact, because churn is very expensive for your business. It has a negative impact in the growth trajectory because more people are trying and then they're leaving the app, right? A high churn rate gets compounded over a period of time. Getting a user who churned coming back to it is a very expensive. The cost of acquisition is very high. So you really will, even if you're making a lot of money, because the acquisition costs are high, you're going to have a reduced revenue model. That basically the graph talks, the first nearly linear growth is about 1% churn. But the other two are more interesting. The second one, which is basically not the darkest green, the one in between, is only 2.5% of a user's churning. And with 5% churn compounded, it is literally that you're not helping your company grow. So controlling user churn and subscription churn is very, very, very important for the business to grow continuously. Now, subscription churn can happen in two ways. One is a voluntary churn, where the user goes ahead and cancels the subscription. And another one is an involuntary churn. Involuntary churn is where the subscription payment method fails, like your credit card has expired, or the payment model is not passing the payment instrument is not passing the risk analysis, things like that. Those are areas where these two are there. There are two reasons, and you attack these two problems in slightly different ways. And I'll talk about some of the techniques that you can use in order to help your users or help your app retain your users. Now, when it comes to voluntary churn, user goes to Play Store and cancels it. There are a couple of the common reasons are not happy with the app anymore. This did not meet my expectations sort of situation. Does not need the service anymore. So they tried it. Maybe used it for some time, and then they feel like, oh, this is a service I'm not going to use for a long period of time, so I will cancel it off. Or they find the price being too expensive. For when the recurring part of it comes about, right? Their usage reduced. Their next time the app got renewed, they realized that they are not really using it. So value proposition started like falling apart. So that is a couple of reasons why users go and cancel the subscription. When a subscription is canceled, the subscription will still continue, which means the entitlement, that is access to the premium features that you've offered, will continue as long as the plan, for the length of the plan. Which means if I've bought an annual subscription, say on January 1st, which runs all the way till December 31st, and I have canceled my subscription, say sometime in between, say in August, I've canceled my subscription. It doesn't mean that, the only thing it means that my subscription is not going to get renewed automatically on December 31st. What it will basically do is I will still have access to my subscribe the premium features or the premium content that I have subscribed to for that entire period of time. So there will be two states. One is a subscription cancelled, and the second one is subscription expired. In the case that I was explaining, subscription cancelled is when the subscription at August your subscription is cancelled. That is, you continue to have your entitlement till the December 31st. On December 31st, that is when your entitlement actually cancels off, which means your access is actually getting revoked, and the subscription is considered to be moving to an expired state. Just keep in mind, this is important to have a distinction of understanding of these two states, basically because some of the products actually take this into account while working. Now, subscription can be restarted when it's in the cancel state, and that is important because if a user has canceled and they can come back to taking that subscription and continuing on, which basically means that the user is actually starting from, say, January 1st. In August I canceled and I restarted in September. From on 31st I'll get renewed again and I'll continue on, which means I've not lost the user in that case. When the subscription expired, then the user will be like a completely new user, has to go to the current SKUs that are available and will have to purchase the item again on the current price. Now, involuntary churn is when your payment methods fail. Google Play will automatically retry for 24 hours. That's a short period. It's only for 24 hours. It will retry the payment multiple times, and if it continues to fail, it also, like Google Play also automatically notifies the user to update the mode of payment because the failure has happened. And if the failure continues, the subscription is cancelled, and the cancellation is also informed to the user. Without account hold or grace period enabled, the subscription will get cancelled within the 24 hours time, and that is a really short period of time. You really want to kind of enable some of these features and make that give the system a little bit of give the user and the system a little bit of time to kind of retry a few more times. So these two features can be used in order to kind of extend this up further, and I'll talk about them. Now, in order to understand user flow, right? So some of these changes that I talked about, okay, the user is actually subscribed, then he has unsubscribed, his entitlement is ending, so where the user is expiring. So in order to understand this, you can actually implement something called as real-time developer notification. This is a feature that's already available in Play. When you implement real-time notification, what it happens is whenever the state of your subscriber changes, that they have cancelled it or they have put there on hold or they have restarted their subscription or paused, you get a communication, a notification, which means a developer will be notified to an endpoint which is based on pub/sub model, and you can take a corrective action based on that information. So this is also very useful in order to understand when the user is actually churning. So when the user is actually canceling, you will get the option, and then based on that state, you can react correctly to the user. The message it contains a purchase token, so that way you can query the Google Play API and understand and get more details around it. Now, in order to do this, you got to set Cloud Pub/Sub service on Google on the Google Cloud API console, and that's how you receive the notifications from Google Play. Once you receive notification, it's up to you to take an appropriate action. It could be that you send a push notification, it could be that you send an email campaign, or you change some UI in your application, or change the SKUs for the user. There are endless options that you can do from your end to kind of ensure that the user is not canceling himself or you retain the user. And this helps you recover some of the cancel subscribers also. So here I've in the diagram I've said talked about different ways in which you can use push notification. Some people use CRM and make a call to the user from their customer service relationship manager might give you a call, and there is a way of getting the user back onto the platform. It could be in-app messaging. It could be where you give a completely different SKU to the user, which with free trials or something like that, some feature, some additional benefits like that. There are different ways of kind of winning back the user here. Now, in order to reduce involuntary churn, you can use grace period. Grace period is, like I mentioned earlier, when when your payment instrument fails, then Google will retry for say 24 hours, and the user is informed to fix the payment method. If the user doesn't fix the payment method within that period of time, the retries will continuously fail, and the user will be cancelled. Grace period allows you to extend this retry window to up to 30 days. Now, when I say it is only in increments, it's in 3 days, 7 days, 14 days, and 30 days. There are like 4 options available for you to do this. Grace period will allow the system to retry for a longer period of time. Now, if the payment works during this grace period, subscription is just restored and the user continues on. The thing to keep in mind here is that the user during this grace period continues to have access to your content or the features that you have enabled. It is not like the subscription is stopped. The subscription continues for this grace period. So the decision of keeping the length of the grace period, the decision of what is the length for the grace period is something that you got to decide based on your business case. Now, some apps will give up to 30 days. There are certain apps which cannot do that, or from business reasons perspective, they will not be able to do that. So look at this and understand what is the timeline that you want to take. Because the user retains, the user does not have any real reason why they want to kind of like they don't lose any access or they don't lose any premium features. Now, grace period can be done at an SKU level. So if you have 5 SKUs or 5 different products in your app, you can have different grace periods for different things. You can have some of them with no grace period, some of them with 3 days grace period, some of them with 7, and some of them with 14, and other options there. The second one is account hold. Account hold will again is for extending Google Pay to keep trying for trying to kind of get this sorry. Let me reiterate. That's basically for Google to keep trying to get the payment completed, and you can extend it up to 30 days before the subscription gets cancelled. But here, the account goes into this hold state where the user loses access until the payment is completed. And this is like more like a suspended state. So user will become like a normal user or a non-premium user, and till the payment continues, the subscription is not subscription goes into the on hold state, but is not considered cancelled. So you still have an option to keep retrying in the background, and if the subscription continues, or if the subscription is if the payment is successful, the subscription continues from then on, and automatically this can be automatically the premium features can be enabled. But there are two differences. There's one thing that you have to keep in mind. This involves a little more developer effort. In case of grace period, it is basically just ticking a checkbox in Google Play Console. But in account hold, there is a little more developer effort, because you might want to show the user in this when your account goes into hold, right? You might want to inform your user accordingly, because suddenly the user will start seeing a different behavior from the app. Most users will get confused if you don't do anything, because they would assume that they are paying for the content and they are not receiving it, which leads to a bad user experience. So a lot of the apps which implement account hold also show in-app messaging, where the user comes in and they get to understand that there is a problem, yeah, they need to fix it within the UI of the app itself, and they deep link into the payment page in Play Console. There are different ways in which you can actually help the user to solve the problem faster. So this, even though this sounds like a very easy, it sounds like the more right thing to do here, it also involves developer effort. So you can use it with grace period or without grace period. That you can decide how you want to use it also. Now, you also want to reduce the voluntary churn, right? This was all about involuntary churn, where the payment system fails and you want to kind of keep using some of these features. So these two, account hold and grace period, are two things that you can use in order to manage that. Now, if you want to reduce voluntary churn, basically, couple of things that you got to do before jumping into the product base itself. One is, during the early days of your app, when the user is onboarding, really look at how closely on the user's activity. Make sure that your user is engaged with the app a lot, because during the early 30, like the first 30 days, is when users have a more impulsive decision of unsubscribing, or they are more impulsive during that phase, so they might just unsubscribe really quickly. Keep the user engaged, make the user feel that the service is valuable. So make steps in order to actually ensure user feels that way. And also take action if you see that there is reducing activity over a period of time. Say the first few days the user used your app, if it's a, say, taking an example, something that is used on a daily basis, sort of an app like a, say, a newsreader app. If you see that initially for the first week the user was reading X amount of minutes a day, and then you suddenly see this over the next 2 weeks reducing continuously, then you want to kind of maybe coax the user by giving a push notification, or throwing up more content, more relevant features, and you want to kind of entice the user to kind of continue using the app, and take into account so that activity churn is something that you got to measure upfront. Keep your analytics, keep a close watch on the analytics. You also use a demography of, also use a cohort of users who are like your new users, and manage them really well. Because once the user has used your app for some time, they are more uh, their impulse decisions actually reduce, and they are more forgiving of any error or technical glitch that comes in within the app. They might tolerate it a bit more. So you want to kind of keep this activity churn data close, and make decisions based on that. Now, before the user cancels, you can always offer a free tier to the user. There are, if the user hasn't engaged enough with your app or had issues with the app. So assume that you saw that a particular user is getting a lot of crashes, or they have raised a complaint in your CSR. You might want to use the deferred billing. There is a concept called as deferred billing in Play, which will allow you to defer the billing for the user from 1 day to up to a year, and use that to provide some free access to content or features. And that way the user is delighted to continue using the app, but you still don't lose, you might still lose some revenue from the user, but you still don't lose the user entirely. There is a balance between losing some revenue, and sometimes losing some revenue is better than losing the entire user, because the cost of acquisition is much higher than that in such cases. There is also options to provide downgrade and upgrade of plans. The Play API has options to do this. So you should explore that option very clearly, because sometimes users go to a particular, when your app offers multiple tiers of service, users might just opt for the most cheapest one in certain cases, and then they realize that doesn't meet their needs, or that is not enough for them. That leads to dissatisfaction. That's where you need upgrade plans, option to upgrade the plan. Sometimes in certain cases users opt for the default, which most probably would be somewhere in the middle. They realize that they don't use most of the features that they purchased for. Instead of canceling, give them an option to downgrade to the next plan, next, the one below, where there are certain features which are removed, and you get a smaller revenue, but you still don't lose the user. So try and use the upgrade downgrade option to prompt it accordingly based on users needs, and not let the user churn out completely. Account pause is another feature that you could use, which provides a user to option to pause the subscription. Make sure that when you pause a subscription, you also lose access to the premium content. So if it is a if the subscription allowed you access to premium content, if you pause it, you stop getting the access to the premium content. Make sure users are aware of this fact. And you want to also share when a user is in the pause state. You also want to create a UI within your app, which basically takes into account the status, and bring up an UI that will enable the user to quickly reactivate. So when the user can continue to use the app, but it will also have the option to reactivate directly rather than going to Play Console and do things, or go to their Play Store app, Play Store and do things. You can always help the user reactivate the subscription from within the app. But the app needs to be aware of the state, and you need to let the app show the UI based on the state. You have to integrate account hold for this and enable the feature in Play Console. That's how you would do it for account pause. This is at an account level. This will be applied to all the SKUs and cannot be done with just one SKU. Unlike say for grace period. Grace period is SKU level that I mentioned. This is at an account level. Pause does not apply to free trials or annual subscription. Remember that. So if you have majority of your users on annual subscription, then this is not a feature that will work very well for you, because the feature does not exist for annual subscriptions. But for anything shorter, it does work, and it does not apply to free trial. So the user cannot say that I have. So if you're giving a free trial for a month, the user pauses it on the 10th of the month, or after 10 days. It doesn't mean that when they restore, they will get that 20 days back. It does not work that way. It gets only paused at the end of the free trial. So they'll continue to get subscriptions. They'll continue to enjoy the free access throughout till the end of it, and then the account goes into the pause state. Once the user cancels a subscription, there are a few things that you want to do quickly. One is that there is a cancellation survey that is given to the user. So you want to look at that cancellation survey and identify the causes that most users are actually telling you. Surprisingly, many teams have told that they got very different opinions from what they thought were the cancellation reasons. And when they looked at the data on the console, for the Play Console, for the cancellation reasons, they were surprised that they got some of these changes, and then they changed accordingly, and that fixes really worked well for them. Sometimes you can offer a discount through deferred billing, by which what I mean is if the user cancels a subscription completely, the next time they try to resubscribe, you want to kind of give a completely different SKU there, which maybe is giving a discount or maybe giving a free trial, which entices the user to come back and subscribe all over again. You want to communicate value. This is something that they do with the marketing angle of things. You communicate value of content or features that the user has not used. So for majority of the users who have churned, if you look at your analytics, you'll understand the features that they were using, and then you will see that certain features were not used enough, and that might be the reason for the churn. Then you want to kind of use a marketing channel and share this additional information with them. Sometimes users might have never discovered that feature in your app, and when they discover, they find value. So you want to use that as a channel to kind of bring back more users back into your subscription. And once the subscription ended, there is also a resubscribe flow that you can actually enable for the user, and the real-time developer notification can obviously help you with some of these things. Now, lastly, there is promotion codes. This is basically one-time codes that you generate to give users access to content or access to premium features or free trials. It's very simple to use. Basically, you go to console and you select a time frame in which the code will be valid. You also say how many codes you need. It'll generate and share in a CSV manner. You can actually mail this to. You can always share this with users via mail or push notification or different channels by which you want to give it, and then use that to kind of engage the user more. You see basically things like prediction models like Firebase prediction, for example, which is again another Google product, basically tells you who are the most likely people who are the most likely users who would churn. And this is automatically, if you're using Firebase Analytics, if you enable this product, this sort of analysis done for free, and this shares the cohort for that. Maybe you want to send a push notification to all these people with a promo code. Again, this involves a little bit of programming or a little bit of effort, because promo codes are one-time individual codes. So to every user, you will have to send a different code. So push notification is not like a mass one-time push notification with one code. Everybody has to receive a unique code with which they can actually do this. So using a combination of the things that I talked here today, there is a lot of things that you can do in order to in order to avoid churning of users, and also holding back the users, and enabling subscription to be a more successful channel for revenue for you here. Uh, like I mentioned towards the start of it, this is not a way in which you want to kind of uh, just put a few SKUs out there, make a nice UI, and leave it at it. You really want to use a combination of the tools and the products that are there in Play Console to enable you to manage the situation a lot better. Things like grace period. We have seen apps actually getting 50% improvement in payment retry success just by enabling grace period for a longer period of time. Likewise, there are examples of each of these features working very well for different apps. And a combination of this would be what you need to really understand and put in your app to enable you to get more success with subscriptions in the real world. I hope this session was really useful for you guys. If there are questions, you can either tweet me at Sanjeev. Twitter, I'm quite active. Ask me questions there, and I will respond very quickly. Uh, Hopefully this was helpful. I know this was a lot of theory that I talked about, but I think having an understanding of this is very important for you to kind of get the revenue part of it done right. All of us developers love technology, but we also have to pay our bills. So making money is important in this case. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Amrit, for this awesome session. And we have a question. That is, can subscription grace period be specified per user or group? Like, allow for long persistent users who usually pay on time and not for others?
No, it's basically on the SKU level, not at the user level. So you can actually say that for a particular SKU, I can enable it for a longer period of time. But this is not generally, you cannot really predict who's going to be a user who needs the grace period. Basically, because things like your payment method failing could be something as simple and totally out of your control, like a credit card expiring and the user not noticing about it. The second thing could be that your bank on that day is having a maintenance window. That is always possible. So it is not something that you can really predict based on statistical information or heuristical information. So enabling grace period should be done for audio users. And this is not like if you really don't want users to enjoy your content during the grace period, then use account hold as the option to do it. And that gives you blocking of content. Maybe that is an incentive for users to go and update it more proactively. So that is an option that you can take depending on how your users are. But it has to be done. It can only be done at a SKU level.
Got it. So we don't have any questions, any more questions now. And
Cool.
so much. And earlier I didn't give you the introduction. Sorry for that. But
No, that's perfectly fine. I
I
was just
would
joking.
like to note for the audience is that Amit Sanjeev is not only the founder of BL Android and Googler. He is one of the first, like the first Android TV in India.
Yeah.
Uh, and
That was
yeah,
a long time back. That was way back in
I
2014
came
or
to
13.
community him. He is my inspiration in communities. So yeah. Uh,
Cool. If there are more questions that you guys come up with when you think through this problem and sleep over it, please feel free to tweet me and or send a DM there. I will definitely respond back to you guys.
yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks
Thanks
for
for the
your time.
opportunity.